Ladies and gentlemen, the flight deck once again. I'm happy to say we've been finally cleared to get moving. We should have you in the air in about 15 minutes from now.
Two jumbo jets.
583 people.
The deadliest air crash of all time. Blame soon falls on one pilot.
Stand by for takeoff. I will call you.
Why would he ignore those instructions?
But as investigators sift through all the evidence...
We are now at takeoff.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. What just happened there? Why didn't they get off where they were told?
These are the top guys. These are the best in the business. How could this happen?
The mountainous island is famous for constantly changing weather.
Can't see anything out there.
A fog bank rolled in, and visibility went down to almost zero.
Clipper 1736, clear taxi into the runway following the 747 from KLM.
Clipper 1736.
First Officer Bragg is unfamiliar with the airport. He checks a runway diagram to help find their turning.
Okay, that's this one right here.
Goes ahead. It's going to put us on the taxiway.
As they taxi, they listen to the tower controller tell the KLM crew ahead of them what to do after departure.
You are clear to the Papa Beacon. Climb 2 and maintain flight level 90. Right turn after takeoff.
Roger, clear to the Papa Beacon. Flight level 90, right turn up. We are now at takeoff.
Okay, stand by for takeoff. I will call you.
And we're still taxiing down
The runway, Clipper 1736.
Papa Alpha 1736, report runway clear.
Okay, we'll report when we're clear.
Thank you.
The Pan Am crew will be turning off the runway in just a few more yards. But now something's wrong. First Officer Bragg can see a plane through the fog.
I think he's moving.
Look at him. That idiot's coming.
Get off. Get off!
Captain Grubbs tries to steer clear of the oncoming KLM. But it's bearing down on them at nearly 200 miles an hour.
Get off, get off, get off! Get off, get off, get off!
And then I ducked and said a real quick prayer. God, I hope he misses us.
Only 61 people from the Pan Am flight survive. The cockpit crew is alive, but 335 others are dead. On the KLM flight, there are no survivors. 248 passengers and crew have been killed. All told, the disaster claims 583 lives. It's the deadliest aviation accident of all time. Is that the cause of the Tenerife tragedy goes beyond a busy airport. Controllers had a lot to do, but they were not overwhelmed. There must have been other factors at play.
I couldn't actually see what happened. A thick fog had rolled in. Visibility was almost zero by then.
All right, let's start with the KLM nearing the end of the runway. 502.
Investigators want to know if the Tenerife controller said anything to the KLM or Pan Am pilots that could have led to the collision. KLM captain Jacob van Zanten and his first officer Klaus Meurs taxi up the runway in thick fog.
At the end of the runway, make 180 and report ready for ATC clearance.
Okay, KLM was told to proceed to the end of the runway turn around, and wait. What was the Pan Am flight told to do?
Clipper 1736, leave the runway 31 out to your left.
Whoa, what did they just ask him to do?
I'm sorry, say again, please.
Leave the runway, the third one to your left.
Okay, taxi down the runway and leave the runway at the first intersection on the left. Is that correct?
Negative. The third one. The third one.
Whenever we look at the question of whether or not the air traffic controllers in the tower, the two gentlemen in the tower, were giving clear instructions, you got to remember we have kind of a linguistic problem here, because these were two Spaniards who speak Spanish as their native language attempting to speak an aviation English to an American crew and to a KLM Dutch crew.
Maybe I'll ask him again. Would you confirm that you want Clipper 1736 to turn left at the third intersection?
It takes an extra effort, but the controller eventually makes himself understood.
The third one, sir. 1, 2, 3. The third one. Third.
The controller's accent may have been another complicating factor for pilots in an unfamiliar airport on a very busy day. In the fog, the KLM crew would not have been able to see that Pan Am 1736 was taxiing past the C3 exit as they waited for takeoff instructions from the controller. The air traffic control recording suggests the KLM crew knew the correct procedures and was following them.
You are clear to the Papa Beacon. Climb 2 and maintain flight level 90. Right turn after takeoff.
Sounds fine.
Roger, cleared to Papa Beacon. Flight level 90, right turn out. We are now at takeoff.
Investigators are mystified. Nothing on the tower recording can explain why the KLM crew started down the runway before they were cleared to do so. Did the KLM crew think the Pan Am plane was already off the runway?
Keep it going.
What the tape reveals next suggests the answer is no.
We are now at takeoff.
And we're still taxiing down the runway, Clipper 1736.
Both crews are using the same radio frequency. KLM should have heard First Officer Bragg report his location.
Papa Alpha 1736, report runway clear.
Okay, we'll report when we're clear.
Thank you.
Crystal clear for all to hear. You're still on the runway. Yet KLM continues to take off.
Captain Van Zanten is a highly experienced pilot with more than 11,000 hours in the air. What led him to believe the runway ahead was clear and that he had permission to take off? Investigators turn to the KLM voice recording for answers. Perhaps something said in that cockpit can explain the incomprehensible decision to start down the runway.
The time limit is 10 hours of flying with an amplitude of 13 hours. That's his fun stopover.
The recording reveals that the captain is worried about work hours. If the crew exceeds their duty time, they'll be forced to cancel the flight. A Dutch pilot can now have his license revoked if he exceeds the legal number of hours.
If I mess this up, I could actually lose my license.
We certainly wouldn't want that.
Well, if we're waiting, we might as well refuel. Tenerife, KLM 4805, now requesting refueling at the apron.
Van Zanten's concern over duty time explains why he decided to refuel while in Tenerife.
That's complete.
Investigators hear more evidence that the captain of KLM Flight 4805 may have been in a rush.
Is he throttling up?
Wait a minute. We do not have ATC clearance. No, I know that. Go ahead and ask.
What investigators hear next answers many of the questions plaguing this investigation.
Yes. Roger, clear to the Papa Beacon. Let's go, check thrust. Flight level 90, right turn out. We are now at takeoff.
Okay.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. What just happened there? Play that again, please.
The controller is providing instructions for what to do after takeoff.
You are clear to the Papa Beacon. Climb 2 and maintain flight level 90. Right turn after takeoff.
Yes.
But the captain reacts as if he's actually been cleared for departure.
Roger. Clear to the Papa Beacon.
Let's go, check thrust.
Before his first officer has finished reading back the instructions, Captain Van Zanten is already on the roll.
Flight level 90, right turn out. We are now at takeoff.
Investigators now know what the Dutch first officer meant by "at takeoff."
He's reporting that he's actually taking off, not that he's ready to take off.
But for investigators, there's something about the radio exchange that still doesn't make sense.
According to the tower transcripts, the controller advised him to stay put.
Okay, stand by for takeoff. I will call you.
Why didn't the KLM crew follow that clear instruction to stand by?
Give me Pan Am at 1706. That's when Pan Am reports on the same frequency that they're still on the runway.
And we're still taxiing down the runway, Clipper 1736.
Hold it there. Why would he ignore them?
The cockpit recordings continue to baffle investigators until they hear another critical moment on the KLM tape.
We are now at takeoff.
Okay.
That's what he heard?
It's a stunning discovery.
Flight level 90, right turn out. We are now at takeoff.
Okay.
The two warnings to stay put were never heard in the KLM cockpit. The tower and the Pan Am flight both made their critical calls at the exact same moment.
Okay.
And we're still taxiing
Stand by
down
for
the
takeoff.
runway.
I will call you.
Clipper 1736.
The simultaneous transmissions produced a 4-second squeal in the KLM cockpit.
We are now at takeoff.
Okay. Stand by for takeoff. Now we're going. Clipper 1736.
The crew heard only one word: okay.
So what's next?
There's one final transmission recorded in the KLM cockpit.
Papa Alpha 1736, report runway clear.
It should have alerted the crew that another plane was still on the runway.
Okay, we'll report when we're clear.
Thank you.
Only the flight engineer seems to have understood it.
Is it not clear then?
What did you say?
Is it not clear then, the Pan American?
Oh, yes.
The pilots ignore his concern and miss their last chance to avoid a disaster that will claim 583 lives.
Oh, damn it!
Van Zanten should not have moved without explicit clearance.
You learn that in probably the first or second lesson in aviation. Do not take off unless you get a clearance.
Investigators dig into the career of Captain Van Zanten. They're looking for anything that might explain why an experienced pilot would violate such a fundamental rule.
This guy was a superstar.
They learned that Van Zanten was one of KLM's top pilots. He was the face of the airline, the director of flight safety, and head of the flight training department.
How could a human being with so much intelligence, so much capability and experience and position, and the director of safety, how could he fail like this?
Investigators suspect that in an odd twist, the captain's elevated status may have played a role in the Tenerife disaster.
Back in those times, everyone had an awe of the captain, if you will. His word was God. His word was unquestioned. If he has that kind of authority, it's less likely for someone, his junior, in this case the flight engineer and the first officer, to challenge anything he does.
Okay, we'll report when we're clear.
Thank you.
Is he not clear then?
What did you say?
Is he not clear then, the Pan American?
Oh, yes.
The conversation in the KLM cockpit leading up to the accident seems to support that notion. But Van Zanten's esteemed status doesn't explain the most troubling question of all. Why did he believe it was safe to take off in the first place?
Logically, you should make extra clear that, hey, we're taking off. Is the runway clear?
Jacob Van Zanten's attempt to take off without a clearance resulted from his time in the simulator, and that he kind of reset himself. He was his own clearance authority in the simulator.
And then 2 separate radio calls that should have told him the Pan Am was off the runway cancel each other out.
Okay. We're still tracking down. We're going for 1736.
The world's deadliest airline accident is now all but inevitable.
I think he's moving.
Look at him. That idiot's coming.
Basically, we had a captain who wanted to get off the ground as rapidly as possible.
Oh, damn it!
The weather was not cooperating, and he was about out of crew duty time. And in a situation like that, the human mind, our carbon-based brains, tend to jump a few cogs, so to speak.
Get off, get off, get off! Get off, get off, get off!
He had a gun cocked and loaded by various factors, and he was the one that pulled the trigger.
The investigation into the collision at Tenerife results in dozens of recommendations. Few aviation accidents have triggered a greater number of significant changes.
That's what began to be the seed of training for what we later called crew resource management, where we said to the captain, we're on to you, bub. You're a human being. You can make mistakes, even when you have no intention to, and even when you're completely qualified.
KLM and other airlines transform their training methods for captains, helping them become more responsive to their crewmates.
Even the most senior and the most highly trained individuals can make mistakes. And we need to rely on the resources of all the crew members to compensate for that.
You are clear to the Papa Beacon. Climb 2 and maintain flight level 90, right turn after takeoff.
The accident also changes the very language used by controllers around the world.
Controllers don't use the word takeoff unless they actually mean and intend for the aircraft to be doing just that, taking off. Instead, they will substitute the word after departure, turn right heading 040 or something to that effect.
Those 583 people, those people did not die in vain. We have learned those lessons. They changed the whole face of aviation safety.